Midden? What's a midden? Of course, I know that most of you spend most of your life thinking about what a midden could be. Well, here we are. It's early dawn, quite cold in Paracas, Peru, along the coastline. And behind me, you can see these white mounds, and they are middens. So a midden is essentially an old refuse heap. Not any old kind of refuse. They're made up of shellfish. That means where the ancients went into the ocean, got shells and clams, cleaned them up, took the meat, and then they had the habit of cleanly disposing of these remnants of the shells themselves in mounds like these. Now, when you take a closer look at those middens, they're archaeologically very interesting because within them you can find textiles, pieces of pottery, and other remnants that are quite interesting to study. So we know their eating habits, their dietary habits. Also very important, they really kept their living quarters clean and always collected the refuse in certain areas to keep them away from where they lived. As you can also see by the size of these middens, they are huge, and that means for generations, hundreds of years, they started accumulating. Let's have a closer look. The sheer expanse of it is enormous, and this midden is about 200 meters long, and it's quite tall. I'm a 6-footer, and I will get close and I will show you that this mound is definitely taller than I am. There you go. It clearly dwarfs me by about 2 meters, and the expanse still goes on into the horizon. One can only imagine how prolific these oceans were. Nowadays, sadly, it's in decline. I've been talking to the fishermen all along the coastline, and they tell me that the shellfish have nearly disappeared. The fact is that I'm 55 years old right now, and since I was born, the human population has increased by 250%. That means we've got more mouths to feed and less resources to do it with. Middens are essentially time machines. Archaeologists can dig through them layer by layer over the centuries and have a look at what people ate, what were the eating habits, and also how did the local animal population fare. So for example, here's a whalebone right here, and beside it is a shellfish called a loco in the local parlance. I will find out the scientific name and put it in the video. You can see this is a fairly decent sized shell for its species. It's fist sized, and over time we can, for example, study how much of these shellfish were eaten, and by the size of the shellfish whether they were fishing at the right rate or overfishing, because if you overfish, obviously they become less and or smaller. And within the refuse heap we can also discover pottery shards, as I mentioned before. So this is a pottery shard right here. Very simple, rough, but very utilitarian. That means for daily use. Moving further up, there is one more. Here we go. This one is completely black. That means that this one came from a cooking pot where they actually put this over the fire and boiled their seashells. One thing that just caught my attention is a possibly archaeological whodunit. This is a human femur. How it ended up here, I have no idea. Here's another neat bit. This is actually a fisherman's net, all curled up. It's still made out of cotton, and this is hundreds of years old, maybe 1,000 years old. Not quite sure which culture this is, but this is clearly a fisherman's net made out of cotton. The workmanship is exquisite. Because of the dryness of the desert and the salt content, the fabrics are in excellent condition. As you can see, even this piece of fabric that somebody chucked away. And further up, we can also see evidence of fur seal hunting, because this is a chunk of fur seal coat here dug in. So they hunted them, of course, for the meat, for the blubber, and for the leather to make shoes or sandals. And that's what I find so fascinating about archaeology, because archaeologists for me are like detectives. They can find really cool clues in situations and locations that most of us will say, meh, it's just a little mountain off, I don't know what. But digging in, these guys can tell a whole story just by digging through refuse. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.